Welcome to Better System Trader, the podcast to help systematic traders of all levels improve their trading. We'll give you loads of expert tips and practical advice on system design and validation, money management, trading psychology, and many other topics. Whether you're just starting out or a savvy systematic trader, we're here to help you improve your trading and find more success. This is Better System Trader with your host, Andrew Swanscott.
Hi there and welcome to the Better System Trader podcast. Glad you could join us today, where we're going to be focusing on high performance trading. Now, quite often the focus for traders are the technical aspects of trading, for example, indicators, backtesting procedures, robustness testing, statistics, trading platforms, infrastructure, all that kind of stuff. Now, I guess all of these aspects can have an impact on trading performance. However, there are other aspects of trading too that often go unrecognized and ignored. And these aspects can have a huge impact on our performance no matter how good our strategies are. So, what are they? Joining us today to discuss high performance trading is Mandi Pour Rafsendjani. Now, Mandi is a trader and a peak performance trading coach who works with independent traders, prop trading firms, and hedge funds to improve their trading performance. And some of the things you'll discover in my chat with Mandi today are the key aspects that set high performing traders apart from everyone else. We'll also talk about how traders can identify what's really holding back the performance. Mandi shares why it's important to have a reset button. And we also talk about two aspects of drawdown and how traders can more effectively manage drawdown. Mandi also shares how to strengthen your taking losses muscles so that we can better handle losses. And we talk about a whole lot more as well. So let's get started. Let's jump over now to my chat with Mandi on high performance trading. Hi Mandi, welcome to the show. It's really great to have you here today.
Thank you so much, Andrew, for inviting me. I feel really privileged to have our interview today, so thank you.
Yeah, it's great to be chatting to you. Actually, we met, I think, it's probably a few months ago now at the ATAA conference. And unfortunately, we didn't get much time to talk then because we were all very busy. But now it's great to actually chat with you and share our conversations with the listeners. So I'm really looking forward to having a talk with you today.
Yes, me too. At least I got a selfie out of you that I posted on Twitter and LinkedIn and Facebook. So,
okay. Awesome. Well, how about we just start with a little bit of background on yourself, just so that people can get to know you a little bit better. So, why don't we start with how you got started in the markets?
So what happened was I used to live in Hong Kong and I came to Australia in 1998. And I wasn't allowed to work. And so I felt really bored and lonely. And I started going to seminars, thinking that I meet people there until I get my work permit. And I came across the wonderful world of wealth creation, which I had never heard about. And I went to this seminar that was in 2000. I think it was my first seminar that I paid for. It was called Wealth Accelerator Systems. And so I went to this seminar and this guy said, give me your money and I invest it for you and I make you rich. We both know how that ended. So I went to the bank, got a loan of $10,000 and gave him my $10,000, thinking that I paid back really quickly. And I was lucky, for me it was just $10,000. Some, they mortgaged their farms and they gave him like hundreds of thousands of dollars, which is really interesting to see, right? How gullible people are and how desperate they are for help. And of course, he left the country, he went to America, and the money was never been seen again with several $1 million. The course was called Wealth Accelerator Systems. I remember that. And so the company who had organized this event, they said, sorry, we can't get you your money back, but you're allowed to choose just some other seminar and do something for free. And the only seminar left for the year was an options trading course. Now, Andrew, I never saw myself as a trader. I didn't think that I have what it takes and was just totally not in my realm of possibilities. And so when I did this course, about options trading, of course, I thought, wow, I found the holy grail. I can be rich too. And it was July, I remember, and I thought in 6 months' time, I have a Ferrari in my garage and I'm going to be wealthy. And, some people said to me, look, the biggest problem is discipline. And like, come on, I'm German. We Germans invented discipline. And of course, it took not 6 months, it took more like 6 years, So that's how I got into trading. But once I did the course, I was hooked like everyone else.
Yeah. So if we fast forward to today now, what are you doing? What markets and do you trade, timeframes, trading style, that kind of thing?
I mostly trade the DAX, and I trade a little bit of Forex as well. A little bit of the Dow, but the thing is, it's just because the time zone is a little bit hard for us Australians. I don't trade the Dow that much. I like trading the Dow, though. I can read it easily. I can't read the SPX as much, the S&P 500, for some reason, not sure why, but I can't read it. So mostly the DAX and a little bit of currencies. Time frames, I'm a very short-term trader. I always wanted to be a long-term trader, and I just can't do it, Every time I put on a long-term position, I end up in a big loss. I don't know why. It's just not, I'm not a big visionary thinker, most probably. And I'm really good at short-term trading, at scalping, actually, which limits me in some ways, but that's my sweet spot. So I need to do what I'm good at.
Yeah. So that convenience around time zones, because you're based here in Australia, in Melbourne, the same as me, is that that convenience around time zones kind of the main thing that led you to the DAX, or is there other kind of aspects that drew you towards trading the DAX there?
It was other aspects, Andrew. The DAX found me, as I would like to say. I was really bad at keeping statistics and records, and I always resisted it and resented it. I resented structure in my life. I was a free spirit growing up, and then someone telling me that I have to follow a routine and have to follow, have to keep statistics. That was against every grain of my being. But then I realized that the freedom that I was seeking in my trading or through my trading was to be found in keeping statistics. Because what happened then, I started keeping my statistics, and I realized how I was actually doing. And I also realized that most of the markets that I was trading, I didn't perform well at all. That I was really performing well at trading the DAX and really performing well at the Aussie dollar and the euro. Cannot trade pound yen for my life. Do not touch gold. Never, ever. So my statistics taught me or showed me what I was being good at. And then I started focusing more on what I was good at instead of trying to figure out which time frame to trade, which market to trade. I was going through everything, which strategy to trade. Once I looked at my statistics told me, and an enormous big part of my struggle in trading fell apart.
Yeah, that's an interesting point you make actually about finding out what's actually working for you and where your performance is. And I think we might come back to that a little bit later. I want to ask you about high performance traders. Now, something we haven't actually mentioned yet is you're not just a trader, but you're also a mentor and a trading coach for other traders. So you have worked with a lot of traders from I guess all levels or stages of their trading journey, from beginning right up to, we had a chat before we started today, and you've been working with hedge funds and things like that. So you do see a wide range of trading experience. Something that I see with traders, especially the inexperienced traders who email me, is they come into trading with the wrong mindset and attitude. I think they're focusing on the wrong things. They're thinking about trading from the wrong perspective. They're asking the wrong types of questions. So in your work with traders, let's just stick with the less experienced ones for now. We can discuss experienced traders in a little bit. But what are some of the common themes that you see could be harming traders when they're just starting out?
This is a really good question. I was wondering myself. When I started, there was no internet. I had to actually pick up the phone and call my broker. And today there's so much information for free. I had to go to seminars and read extra books. There was no webinars, no YouTube. Why is it that the statistics haven't changed, that there's still 90% of traders not performing? Maybe it's a little less, maybe 85% now, but still the statistics haven't really changed much. And now the challenge is that there is too much information. They don't know what to look for and what is the right information to start off with. I think that's a real big challenge also. As we both know, there is sufficient information out there that is actually not working, that is made up by people who are great marketers and not great traders, and they don't know what the difference is. And to be honest, the guy that I did my first seminar with turned out he was a great marketer, but not a trader. And so I still learned a lot from him, but I didn't know the difference. And only later in my journey, I realized what the difference is. Now, so the biggest challenge is they don't know where to start. They don't know how to set themselves up on a journey of becoming a successful trader. And they get stuck with wanting to feel good. So most traders that I find who start new in the markets, they start because they're trying to fill a void. They start because they hate their lives, they hate their job, and they, for the first time, get a glimpse of how life could be different. Mm-hmm. And this is then when a sense of desperation comes in, and they want to start making money straight away. And they don't look at, if someone starts a business, funny enough, they wouldn't expect to make money straight away. They know that they have to get the premises, that they have to get finances right, that they have to learn about their customers, they have to learn about their product. In trading, that doesn't seem to be the case. Even though intellectually the traders know, the new beginners, they know that they have to do that, or they read about it, but they don't do it. And I don't know about you, but I was exactly the same.
Yep, so, I was as well.
Yeah, it seems to be this thing about human behavior. And we all have to learn our lessons before we get to that point. So I think the biggest challenge is that traders start in order to fill a void. And for the first time, they find something that they're passionate about. For the first time, they start doing something that they feel that matters to them in their life. And, that's why there is so much pressure on having to perform in life. And then, of course, I did the same. I told everyone that I'm going to escape the rat race and I'm going to be like this big shot trader. And then I had to live up to that.
Yeah.
And when it didn't happen, there was this sense of guilt and shame around it as well. And then my family being worried about me and, that I have a gambling addiction and all that emotional stuff that comes with it. So in a nutshell, even though there is so many warnings, we experienced traders always say trading is hard. It's a long journey. The journey never ends. They don't hear that. They don't filter that through in their hearing because they don't want to hear it.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you make a really good point there as well about, there's lessons that we need to learn on our journey to becoming more experienced. And I'm sure everyone listening can probably point to a particular period in their trading journey where they made some poor mistakes and they had some lessons to make, and hopefully, they became better traders for that by learning through those experiences. But do you think, is there a way that beginning traders can kind of shortcut some of those lessons, or do you think it's really necessary for them to live through that so that they can become better out the other end?
This is really interesting. That's the question that parents ask themselves as well, who try to protect their children from making the same bad mistakes that they did. And what I hear from most parents is that even though they tried so hard, they could not protect their children from making bad mistakes, the same bad mistakes that they did. The difference is, though, that because the parent told the children about the mistakes they did, the children recognize the mistakes faster and they can change quicker than if they didn't know about that this is actually a common mistake. Now, that is one path, right? Listening to the experiences that successful traders have, going through the same mistakes, but recognizing that you repeat that mistake. Now, in order to shortcutting a journey, again, I don't know about you, but when I started, all I thought was I need to learn about candlesticks, about chart patterns, and keeping my profit and loss statistics, not realizing that there's so much more to it. What is really important is that we do a business plan about trading. When I talk to my institutional guys, the hedge fund guys, the guys who worked at Goldman Sachs, the guys who worked at, Westpac and or the banks, none of them was allowed to touch a computer mouse to put on a trade in the first 6 months. What they did is they went from desk to desk. So they would learn about, let's say, options. Then they would go to the macro desk, would learn about treasuries. Then it would go to the next desk, learn about futures trading. Go to the next desk, learn about commodities. They went through each and every desk until they learned everything about the markets that there is to be learned. And only then they were allowed to start looking at trading. And newbie traders that do the other way around, they get into trading, they realize that it doesn't work this way, and then they start educating themselves. And that has an enormous impact on their mindset, on their self-trust, on their fears, So that is then leading us to the next concept, the concept of your trading mindset. Now, again, which trader starts out working on their trading mindset? I didn't. I only started out when things became desperate and I had to take a good look in the mirror, and I realized that I was quite neurotic. And only the market gave me that feedback. I was neurotic my whole life, but I never got the instant feedback. When my relationships didn't work out, it was always the bastard guy who, left me or cheated on me. It wasn't me filtering for those kind of people who weren't nice to me, Yeah. When work didn't work out, it was because my boss was not nice. I was working so hard and my boss didn't appreciate me. What's wrong with him? So there was no instant feedback where it was just me. There was always a context that I could shift responsibility to. In trading for the first time, there was the moment when I had to say, wow, there is something that I need to look at within myself.
Yeah. Yeah, I had a very similar kind of thing. I used to be a perfectionist, and I always wanted to be right, and I wanted everything to be perfect. And in the markets, that doesn't go too well. So over the years, I've kind of recognised that and trying to fix that. And it definitely does. It's a painful experience to get that kind of feedback from the market, but I think it's very necessary in order for you to be able to grow and to improve what you're doing.
Exactly. And the perfectionist, that's such a good one. I mean, I always tell the story when I had a $4,997 profit and I wanted it to be $5,000 for whatever silly reason. And I got out a $200 profit.
Oh, no.
Yeah. It was very painful, but this was a perfectionist tendency as well. Now, and I love that you bring that up, Andrew, because what most traders say is, I need to fix my perfectionist tendency. I need to stop. And then, they talk about discipline and patience in the context of perfectionist tendencies. But this is just a surface level. The question is, what causes your perfectionist behavior? Again, if you look at computers, right? We don't say, we were talking about your Skype problems, we don't say what's wrong with Skype. We would say Skype needs to be fixed and it's something in the programming that needs to be fixed.
Yeah.
And not a button that you press that changes. And this is what most traders don't get. They try to solve the superficial problems, the surface level problems, rather than the deeper seated root cause of what caused you to become a perfectionist. And it's not necessarily about going back into your childhood and bringing up all the rubbish from then, but it's about recognizing that there was a point in time when you decided that you need to be a perfectionist in order to survive childhood. And your unconscious has done a really great job to keep you safe from whatever it was. Now, I'm not talking about extreme, abuse or neglect or whatever some children go through. It can be something simple like being afraid of losing your mother's love, where it does need to be something grave. And if you understand what caused this kind of behavior, then most of it already falls away. And now it's about learning a new strategy, because what you would have done is you would have trained your whole life on how to be a perfectionist, because that was what your unconscious needed to do to keep you safe. But as an adult, it doesn't work anymore, having to perform in an adult environment. What you now need to do is you need to learn a new strategy on how not to be a perfectionist. What does it mean not to be a perfectionist? What's the opposite of not being a perfectionist? What does it mean? Yeah. So most traders that don't go that far back.
Yeah. Okay, let's just switch now to the more experienced trader. Now, by that I mean someone who perhaps has been trading for a while. Whether or not they're profitable, I don't think that matters. But they can definitely have a different set of problems once they've had a few years in the market and they've been through some of these challenges compared to traders just starting out. So, what are some of the issues that you see are holding more experienced traders back?
So more experience, that's interesting as well, because what I see with many traders is that they think they have a system that works, but they actually don't. The first thing I ask a trader is, if they're more experienced, ask a trader, do you have your trading strategy written down in a step-by-step recipe style? And most of them say no. Do you keep your trading statistics? And again, most of them say no. If they say yes, then I say, great, what statistics do you keep? Oh, my profit and loss, and how many winning and how many losing trades I take. And then this is a perfect example of sports, just because Germany lost in the World Cup doesn't mean that Germany is the worst team in the world, right? So we then need to look at their performance statistics compared to France, who just won the World Cup. What was their performance compared to the better performing team? And this is what most traders haven't learned. They don't know how to keep their statistics. And also, keeping statistics is boring. It's painful. It's like looking in the mirror when you're not in shape. And but that's the very thing that keeps you progressing on becoming a successful trader. And this is the biggest mistake I see more experienced traders do. They don't do what needs to be done. They do everything else, just not that one thing. Yeah. And so, when I start working with new traders, someone asked me a really good question. He said, I get why you work with more experienced traders, but why do you start working with new traders who don't have a system as yet? And my example is always, and that is for both, actually for all traders. When you sit in a Lamborghini, like the hottest car that you can find, with a GPS, and your windscreen is fogged up and you can't see, your car's worth nothing, right? And so your windscreen, that's your mindset. If your mindset is clouded with fears, with limiting beliefs, with a lack of self-worth, with a lack of self-trust, with a really bad self-image, no matter how great a trading strategy you have or get, you will not perform. So my job is, with any trader that I work with, to help them remove the fog so that they can see clearly through their windscreen. And then they can start learning how to drive that Lamborghini.
Yeah. Yeah, I think as you mentioned, the mind is a very powerful thing, and it can easily mask or hide the actions or limiting beliefs that could be hurting us or holding back our performance. And sometimes it can be really obvious to outside people looking in, but it can be difficult at times for us to kind of analyze ourselves and try and accept or even identify things that need to be worked on. So is there anything that traders can do to kind of make that a bit easier for ourselves, to identify areas that we may have fog?
Absolutely. And, as much as I used to hate routine, as much as I used to hate keeping statistics, that's how much I love it now, because that was the very thing that actually helped me to progress in my trading. So when we look at statistics, we can look at the three-step program in order to become more disciplined or to learn to do what it takes. So step number one is that you actually learn to understand yourself, right? So what does understanding yourself mean? It means that you you keep, let's say, a spreadsheet of the most common mistakes that you make. So I call that the critical moments. One of my critical moments, for example, was that I would get out of a trade and then the trade would continue in profit and I would get this sense of regret having missed out. I get back into the same trade and then, of course, the trade turns around and then I don't take my loss and then all my profits are being lost on that trade again. That is one example, right? So we always generally say, I let my profits, I cut my profits short and I let my losses run. But how specifically do you do that? What is it that you do in each moment? And I have identified about 17 of those critical moments that I do. Then what I do is, what is the thing that I think and feel before I have this behavior? What is it that I think and feel before I don't take my loss? What is it that I think and feel before I take my profit? So that I get an awareness and understanding of what I'm actually doing, right? Because it's so unconscious that if we don't take note of it, we will never be able to understand what it is. And then tick off, keep this list of the typical mistakes that you make, and then start ticking off how many times you did that in your trading session. And then you will realize that it's usually one or two mistakes that you do keep repeating all the time. And then you realize, oh my God, I'm actually 80% there in my journey. It's only those two mistakes that I need to iron out, that I need to resolve. And then I'm almost there. You know what, Andrew? Most traders, they're almost there. But because they don't keep the statistics, they don't know about it. And so really keep track of that. So once you know what it is that you're doing in terms of the mistakes that you make, the feelings that you have, then you need to work on what is it that you can do instead. How do you work around it? So let's say I had this thing, that superwoman syndrome, I call it. When I had a certain number of profitable trades in a row, I would get sloppy. And I know based on my statistics that after 4 or 5 trades, I get superwoman syndrome and then I start having a loss. How do I know that? Look at your statistics. It says profitable trades in a row. Right? Mine says 5. So very simple, not rocket science. Now I know that feeling that precedes my superwoman syndrome. It's a feeling creeping up in my solar plexus. And I know I have to be careful now. I know that I'm now prone to making mistakes. What do? I go out for a run. I go out into the real world, because in the real world, people work for $20 an hour. And we tend to forget that when we lose $200 in a minute, So I make sure that I put everything into perspective again and I reset myself. It's like pressing the reset button. What I do in terms of reset button depends on how I feel. So if I have been alone all day or maybe 2 days because we work from home, right, then I go out and meet a friend. Then I need to be around other people. If I have been around other people a lot, like last week when I was in Brisbane, I need to be on my own. Then I, go for my run on my beach or sit alone in a cafe and just read the paper, whatever it is. I've got about a list of 50 things that make me happy, I call it. So 50 things that refill my silos or keep me balanced and neutral. So away from being overly excited when I had a good run, and away from being depressed and despondent and stressed when I don't have a good run. So always managing my emotional pendulum.
Yeah. So you're really talking there about mindfulness and, not just analyzing the markets, but also paying attention to yourself, how you feel, what are your behaviors, and you're kind of tracking that over time with your statistics and trying to find, the repeating actions and things like that are causing these problems.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, I just want to talk about high performance for a minute, because you touched upon it at the very start, and we've kind of been talking about things that can improve our performance all the way through. But you do work with hedge funds and prop trading firms and things like that. What do you think are some of the key aspects that set the high performers apart from everyone else?
Yeah, it's really interesting, and it has intrigued me for many years because, as I said before, I did not come as a high performer into this world. I was the opposite. So I draw a lot of work from family dynamics. And there is certain rhythms to family dynamics in terms of firstborn, secondborn, and so on. Tony Robbins has this wonderful example where he talks about two brothers. One brother becoming extremely successful, running a multi-million-dollar business. The other brother ending up in the gutter, being a drug addict and alcohol addict. And then he asked both brothers, why did you become who you are and how you are today? And both brothers give the same answer. How could I, with an alcoholic, abusive father like I had, become any different? And this is so interesting. This is the same what I see in trading. So some traders, they go into the world of trading because they want to build a life, they want to create a life and become successful traders because they have to escape something that they don't want in their life. Other traders go into trading because they want to fix what happened in the past, and they want to fill a void, and they're looking at the past and trying to they're trying to have a better experience than they have right now to basically escape their crappy life. That is one really big difference where I see the high performers, the successful guys, they're forward thinking. They want to build a new house. Whereas the non-performers or less performing traders, they look at the past and trying to fix the past, so trying to renovate the old disgusting house. Yeah, and that's mostly disgusting in their mind only. We as outside onlookers, we would not see what they see. That's their self-worth, right? Now, when we look at the decisions that have been made, for whatever reason, I don't quite know why, but it doesn't really matter. The firstborn is the one who goes on, becomes very successful. And the secondborn is the one who does not become successful. So I wondered, why is that so? And what is there anything that can be done about it? And absolutely yes. So I had the pleasure of profiling hundreds of extremely successful high performers. The guys who are extremely successful, they are so generous, and they let me do profiling and behavioral profiling, personality profiling on them, and ask them questions. And what I found, so that's one difference, right? So they go out and build a new life rather than trying to fix the old life. The second one is that they are extremely facts and figures focused. The non-performers, they feel so bad about themselves. So that's where learned helplessness comes into play. The guy in the example, Tony Robbins' example, who ended up in the gutter, he must have learned helplessness. Why? Most probably because his older brother was taking care of him and tried to rescue him all the time, because this is what older siblings do with their younger siblings, generally speaking. It's very generalized, okay? So they have learned helplessness. They don't know how to survive on their own almost. And they're extremely emotional. Now, what they need to learn then is, and this is the case, that was the case for me, Andrew. I was so neurotic because I've got an older brother who took care of me when my parents separated, and I was the emotional in the family because he was the intellectual, the smart one in the family, extremely successful, my brother. And I was always fighting against that. And I didn't know, what is it? Why do I sabotage myself? I did not sabotage myself. I just did not learn how to think in such a way that would lead to the outcomes that I wanted. And my emotions, my bad self-image was always in my way. So they're facts and figures focused. What do we do with traders who are not performing well? We help them to complete the past. Any pain, any hurt that they have experienced, any shame, any guilt needs to be healed. And then we teach them how to be facts and figures focused. It can be so simple. And that's why I believe everyone can become a successful trader if they're willing to do that work, because it is confronting, it is painful doing sometimes the healing work, right? So they're facts and figures focused. Another aspect is they are very self-focused. So if I ask them, how do you know you're doing a good job? They usually say, I just know. Or, my statistics tell me. Or, I discuss with my other traders and I look at what they're doing and then I compare to myself and then I know if I'm doing good or not. So they're self-focused, whereas the non-performing traders, they're others-focused. They need someone else to tell them how they're doing. Again, I was in that category. Again, it's just a strategy, a survival strategy that we have learned, because as a child, I had to be others focused because my brother was the one who knew everything. He was older than me, of course, he knew more. But as a child, you don't know that. And I needed to understand that I needed to create a strategy, a thinking strategy, benchmarks, again, facts and figures, statistics that would tell me if I was doing well or not, instead of looking for others to appreciate me, to acknowledge me, to make me feel better about myself. Then another really interesting point is that they're loners and they don't really care much about what other people think. So if I say care, I don't mean that they're careless. I don't mean that they hate other people. Some are really extremely narcissistic, who are good in trading. But, that's the other extreme then. I'm talking about the healthy, functional trader. So what they do is they are so self-trusting in themselves that they're not afraid of other people disapproving of them. Whereas the non-performing traders have a very low level of self-trust. And that's where the fear comes in of not being accepted by others, being afraid of rejection, being afraid of being ostracized. That impacts your trading performance tremendously, because unconsciously you will think that you're a disappointment or, that you don't matter. And so unconsciously you will make trading decisions that are reinforcing that self-image of yours. Again, once you understand that this is your self-image, then you can take steps in order to change that, to build your self-trust and to know that you can trust and rely on yourself. You are not dependent on other people to a certain extent, of course. We all are herd animals, and that you will be okay. That will change your trading tremendously.
Yeah. Well, there's a lot of great points you raised there, Mandi. I really like the one, I see this quite a lot myself as well, that the high performers seem to be playing their own game. And as you mentioned, beginners often, they don't have the support of loved ones, or people might think they've got gambling problems and things like that. And they really focus on, these kind of things, and they're trying to get validation from external parties. And from what you've just said is, high performers don't necessarily care too much about that. They know what they've got to get done, and they don't have to worry about trying to validate to others. They've got this long-term vision of where they want to be, and that's kind of guiding them all the way. So I think,
Yes.
you've made a lot of good points there, but I really love that one. That's really cool.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I just want to, we need to start wrapping up soon. I just want to ask you one more question before we do that. And it's probably a big one, actually, so we'll see how we go. But I think one of the most challenging aspects of trading is drawdown, and it can really take a big emotional toll on traders. It can be very challenging. I think it's probably one of the biggest reasons why people stop trading altogether is because they can't handle the drawdowns. They've lost too much money, or it's, psychologically it's too hard to handle. So do you have any kind of pointers or tips for people how they can kind of look at drawdown and manage themselves through that?
Yeah. So there's several aspects to it once again. So let's look at two aspects of it. One is the emotional aspect, and the other is the cognitive aspect, so the thinking patterns. The emotional aspect is what I said before, what does a drawdown mean to you? What is it? If it were a reflection of you, what does it mean that you're a disappointment to the family, that you don't have what it takes, that you suck as a trader, as a person? So all those self-image notions are expressed in the feelings about a drawdown. And it's really funny when I talk to a high performer who are naturally high performers, right? And I explain to them how the less performing traders feel. They don't understand it. They don't get it. It's like, why would you feel like that? That's stupid. It's like, no, it's not, So you have your problems. They have their problems.
Yeah.
So that's one thing. I don't want to go back there because I explained that quite in detail already in the previous question. Let's look at the cognitive. What can you actually do about it when you have this experience that you find it hard to take losses? One would be to go on a demo account and to rack up losses and to practice taking your losses. Practice the taking losses muscle. I found one of the biggest challenges I had was when I had a really profitable run. It seems like my taking loss muscle got weak. And I found it hard to take a loss. So what I do is I go on the demo and just practice that behavior of pressing that mouse button after a 2% loss. Just practice that. Then what I did was, and what I do with my traders, right? They have to, nowadays with Meta-4, you can trade such small amounts that you can have a $1 loss, right? Traders who don't want to take losses, they're happy to spend $200 on something stupid, pair of shoes that they never wear, but they don't want to take a $2 loss or $20 loss because it means so much.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what I do is I say practice taking that in the real world. Then start with a $1 loss, rack up $1 losses and take those losses. Practice that muscle. So that's one approach on how to work with losing trades. Another approach is so this is all about managing yourself in the face of taking losses. Traders who don't like to take their losses. Again, look at what precedes you not wanting to take your loss. What is it that you're thinking? What is it that you're feeling? What I found is that most traders do is before they take a loss, they have this feeling of, feeling sick in their stomach or feeling disempowered. And they think they have this vision in their mind that the trade turns around the very moment they take that loss. And you know what? The thing is, yes, it will. It happened to all of us. It happens to everyone that trades turn around the moment you take your loss. But that is not the point. So they focus on all the emotional elements, all the feeling elements. Shift your focus to your facts and figures. Has it hit your 2% stop loss or 3% stop loss or whatever your facts and figures and measurements are? And really shift your focus with intention. Put it up on so if you look at your right-hand side in your brain, when you look to your right-hand side, that's more the emotional side. When you look to your left-hand side, that's more the rational side. That's, again, very, very generalized. Put your trading stats on your right-hand side to override the emotions. Sorry, not the trading stats, your trading strategy. Put it on the wall. What you can also do is what I do with my traders. They have to write the trading strategy in a step-by-step process. They have to laminate it. And then they have to tick it off with a whiteboard marker. Again, that's overriding your emotional responses to it. You can also, again, keep track, notice your natural automatic response to when you have a loss. So I noticed with myself that trade would go in a loss, would get in a loss, and then I would start slumping over. It's like, oh man, not again, and then I would start the self-talk of, bastard, I don't want to take this loss. When will I make it? What's wrong with me? And I have journals upon journals with that self-talk. That didn't change my trading, right? I started changing my self-talk into something that empowered me. I started changing my physiology, sitting up straight, even though I wanted to slump over. And also then focusing on my facts and figures. What is it that the market tells me? Have I hit my stop loss? Yes, winners get out, winners get out. And also looking at how successful traders communicate with themselves. Linda Rushkey, she's amazing. She has this saying, how she talks to herself, winners fix the mistakes immediately, winners fix the mistakes immediately, winners fix the mistakes immediately. So it's just a few of the behavioral patterns that you can implement in your trading that help you dealing with losses more. But you also need to deal with what is the root cause of you feeling bad about your loss? Do you have that? Where in your life does it show up? Are you the one who is being left and feels bad about being left? Are you the one in relationships? Are you the one who hates leaving people in relationships? Is it that you put other people's needs higher than your needs? Now, all of that gives us an indication on how you will perform in your trading. It's such a big topic. I could talk about it for another hour.
Yeah. Oh, you raised so many great points there. I really love that term you used. Was it practicing your stop loss muscle?
Yes.
Yeah, that's cool. I haven't heard that before, but I really like it. So
yeah, and also look at, how do you respond differently? So I noticed that when a trade goes into a profit and then turns into a loss, because I had my stop loss in place, right? I found it hard to accept that loss, and I would start moving my stop loss. When a trade went straight into a loss, I didn't find it hard to take my loss. So what is the context? What are the circumstances of you being able to take your losses? And when we now look at context, right, we want to take that into a bigger picture. So Linda Rushke, again, she had this really interesting viewpoint where she said, how about you start plotting your hours of sleep, your nutrition, your emotional well-being, your happiness, or lack of happiness against your equity curve. How would that be?
Interesting.
And who does that? Only high performers like Linda.
Yeah.
And I added that to myself as well now.
Yeah, that's really cool. Thanks for all that, Mandi. So many great tips there for people to think about. I might just start wrapping up with some quick closing questions. What's the biggest lesson that you've learned through trading?
The biggest lesson I've learned is to learn who I am and to learn that who I was at the time, because 15 years ago, as I said, I was quite neurotic. Maybe I still am, but it doesn't matter anymore. I learned to manage myself, that I'm not doomed, that I can become who I want to become. That was the biggest lesson for my life. And, I create this future self-image of myself that I morph and grow into. And I learned this lesson, Andrew, because I was working with an actress from Neighbours. And, Neighbours, I met her because she worked in a cafe. And when I saw her working, I realized that she was a very different person on set than when she was working in the cafe. And I realized that I can be like an actress. I just need to figure out what is it that makes a successful trader tick. And then I morph into that person. Because you know what? The way I was in other areas of my life worked really well for me. The being considerate about other people. That makes me a great coach. Not so good a trader. Yeah, so I always say I'm a better coach than I'm a trader, even though I think I'm quite a good trader, but I'm not a high-performing, amazing trader, because otherwise, let's be frank, I would be working in a prop firm, trading in a prop firm or in a hedge fund. So, but I realized that I can become this kind of person if I choose to. And Andrew, that is freedom.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks, Mandi. Okay, what's your favorite trading book?
My favorite trading, only one?
Yeah, it's probably lots, yeah.
Okay, so the one thing that really changed my life was Steve Ward's High Performance Trading, and hence my website is called High Performance Trading as well, or one of my websites. I've got quite a few. Steve Ward changed my trading because he taught me to love metrics, to love statistics. I've become a statistics monster, and it turned my life around, not just in trading, everywhere in my life. And so that book is amazing. Then I love the book More Money Than God, which is a book about the biggest failures of hedge funds, and to realize that everybody is going through the same thing. If you're a high-performance, multi-billion-dollar hedge fund manager or a little retail trader trading a $100 account, you go through the same thing. There's just a different way of how to manage yourself. Linda Rushke's Street Smart, and also some of her articles where she talks so openly about the challenges that she had. And again, to realize that she has exactly the same shit to deal with like we have. Yeah. And yet she became this high performer that gave me hope. Because in the past, I always thought, or, because my life is so bad, I can't be like them. And I realized, no, I am like them exactly. I just need to stop using it as an excuse. So high performance trading. Then, of course, Daniel Kahneman, thinking fast and slow. There's so many, So Carol Dweck, of course, with her mindset. I could go on and on and on.
Yeah. I know as well. We've only just kind of scratched the surface of everything that we can discuss. So, if people want to learn more from you, where can they go? I know you mentioned you've got a couple of websites. So, do you want to point them out?
Yeah, so my main website where I try to post some free articles, and I do a lot of YouTube lives as well now, is tradingpsychology.com.au. Mm-hmm. And that's actually my main website. I have high performance trading and also your trading success, but this is more where I run my trainings I've got online trainings and group sessions, group mentoring, and so on. But trading psychology is where you get most of the information. And also I'm on Twitter. I'm very active on Twitter. I love our Twitter community. It is MPX_trader. So Twitter, that would be, I'm on Facebook as well, but not so active on Facebook. Twitter is my family.
All right, cool. Well, I'll have links to those on the show notes page. If people didn't manage to write them down, then there'll be links and people can find that easily. So thanks a lot for your time today, Mandi. I really enjoyed chatting to you. I'm sure a lot of people are going to find what you've shared with us really valuable. Is there anything else that you'd like to mention before we finish up?
I just really would like to thank you for inviting me and allowing me to share. And, Andrew, last 6 weeks I was working with, I've been at, last 6 weeks, traders have contacted me. I get emails all the time like you. All combined, they lost $1 million. And, Andrew, we have to change that. Brokers making an enormous amount of money. And we need to change that. And so this is my purpose, I think, in this industry, to help traders. And anybody can become successful, but you need to start learning to think you need to start learning to think in a multidimensional way of looking at the markets, not just candlesticks, not just chart patterns. Look at the overall correlations. Look at what is it that the successful traders do and model them. And as I said, everybody can make it, but it's not easy. We know that it's really hard.
Yep, that's an excellent point to finish up on, Mandi. So thanks again for your time today. It was it was really great chatting to you. So thanks again, and I wish you all the best.
Thank you. Same to you, Andrew.
All right, cheers. Thank you. Bye. Okay, well, that's it for this episode. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoyed the show. Come on over to bettersystemtrader.com. That's where you'll find all the previous episodes, all the transcribes, all the show notes, and all the free weekly trading tips. bettersystemtrader.com.